Hey gang, we are in Silver City, New Mexico. And why are we here? Well, we're at the cemetery called Memory Lane Cemetery. And the mother of Billy the Kid is buried here, Catherine McCurdy Entrim. We're going to walk to her grave and I'm going to tell you the story. More focused on her, less on Billy the Kid. There's enough out there on Billy the Kid, especially on YouTube. But let's walk to her grave. I'll tell you a little bit about Catherine. And she actually has an interesting story. Now, of course, she was born in Ireland back in 1828 or 1829. As best researchers could tell, it is believed that she came here many of the Irish because of the potato famine of 1845. Don't know if you know that history, but basically there was in the 1840s, there was a fungus that formed, and it really started, I think, in Mexico, and it ended up going up through the Americas in the early 1840s. And then it would make its way and it was killing all the potatoes. And it would make its way all the way on the ships, just like the other diseases and the rats, to Europe, to UK, to Ireland. Now, the problem was that the Irish, especially the lower class Irish, the south and the west of the island, were fully dependent on potatoes. If you go back to the 1500s, Sir Raleigh had introduced the potato to the Irish. They could fully subsist on the strain of potato that they had developed. We're going now to the 1800s, and many of the peasants were fully relying on the potato. So in 1845, they had a crop failure, and they just thought it was kind of a blip on the screen, if you will. You know, people were already having trouble. But the next year came and it happened again. And they were losing. Well, they say it was about 40% of the crop was lost, but in the whole country, and in England too, they were eating other things, but the poor were totally reliant on the potatoes, so they were taking it really hard. And like I say, by 1846 and 47, they called it Black 47. It was really bad. Now, Ireland was under the control at that time of the English, London, England, UK. So they really didn't help matters. They actually made it worse. The Prime Minister at the time was Peel, and he was actually trying to do some things to help. But what he did was he engaged some legislation related to corn tariffs that really made the other party mad. Now, the other party, the Whigs, they were more anti-Irish. They thought the Irish were lazy, alcoholics, and they didn't want to work, and he actually had an attitude that this was a edict from God, that this famine came, and this would teach the Irish a lesson. Basically, 1 million people died. Over 1 million, no one will know the numbers, and 2 million or so fled the country, 80% of which, or we'll never know, came to the United States. And Catherine was one of those people. Now, she was maybe 17 or 18 years old when she came here to America. She came on the steamship Devonshire, so we know that she wasn't on what they called the coffin ships. What are the coffin ships? The coffin ships were precisely that. They would just cram the immigrants on there. As peasants, Irish from Ireland, had no money. They would cram them on these ships, underfed and crowded, and you'd have diseases, typhoid, dysentery. Oh, on some of these coffin ships, 50% of the immigrants died on the way if the ship didn't sink. So it was a brutal voyage, but Catherine made it. And there were some records found about her. Like I said, she would have been 17 or 18 years old. Now, what was common in that era is you'd have indentured servants, and you'd work for wealthy families, maybe for 7 years before earning your freedom. And there are records that indicate that by 1860, Catherine was living in Utica, New York, where she worked for the family of a man named John Munn. At some point, Catherine was married. Maybe it was back in Ireland. Maybe it was here in the United States. She was probably already married to a Patrick H. McCarty. In the year 1859 or 1860, she gave birth to who we all know now as William Henry, or Billy the Kid. And 2 years later, she would have another son named Joseph. So from New York, they just got by, and she's raising the kids. And then in 1865, Patrick McCarty, Father Patrick, he was 59 or 60 years old. He died. So following the death of Patrick, her husband, in 1868, Catherine and her sons moved to Indianapolis, Indiana, and she would operate a laundry there. And that's kind of what her thing was and would be. She would also take in boarders, and that's where she met a young man, William Henry Harrison Antrim. He was 12 years younger than Catherine, and they would be together. They wouldn't be married yet, but they would be together. And it is here where Catherine probably caught tuberculosis. So it was time to move west. Like so many, there were no cures. The cures, I should say, could have been the climate. The McCarty family moved with Antrim to Wichita, Kansas in 1870, and there Catherine and William Antrim would settle. They'd live separately, they weren't married, and Catherine would open up a laundry, and it would turn into the city laundry. And it was actually published in the paper there. Now, what was neat was Catherine was one of the initial, she helped establish Wichita. She was one of 124 prominent citizens there, the only woman who signed the petition to basically incorporate Wichita, Kansas. Quite remarkable. Very upstanding, very well thought of. But working in that laundry and the heat and the toil, her tuberculosis, it wasn't really helping. And the disease was starting to further develop. So they had to get out of Wichita. Where to go? Well, they had money, they had land. I mean, they were there for a little while, so they had accumulated savings, so they would go to Denver, Colorado. And Denver, Colorado, they didn't stay there too long. And from there, they would head down to Santa Fe, New Mexico. And that's where Antrim and Catherine would get married at the Presbyterian church there. So now Billy and Joseph, Billy the kid, if you will, he had a stepfather, official stepfather. And they would all be together. It's 1873, after they got married in New Mexico here, they ended up here in Silver City. And it was here where they would stay. And again, Catherine would open up a laundry. Things stabilized for her a little bit, and the family was doing great. And there's probably, you could imagine, probably the happiest time of their lives. There are a lot of good memories here, but it wasn't going to last very long because the tuberculosis was really setting in. The climate helped, but again, no antibiotics. You can't stop the disease. But they had good times. There was a friend, a childhood friend named Louis Abraham. It was Billy's best friend. And he would be quoted later to say, Mrs. Antrim could dance the Highland Fling as well as the best dancers. Neighbors remembered Catherine as a jolly Irish lady, her blue eyes sparkling, full of life and mischief. But despite her illness, they said she showed good fortitude and good cheer. Traits also evident in Billy. They said always the doting mom, Catherine baked after-school treats for her sons and friends who loved their visits to the Antrim home. Abraham would add, she always welcomed the boys with a smile and a joke. The cookie jar was never empty. The cookie jar was never empty. You know, you think of Billy the Kid and you always hear New York, the slums, they make it out west. You never really hear that part of the story. What a good mom he had. Of course, what happened was she died, right? She died there. She died here. And then Billy was on his own because Antrim, young Antrim, he had that gold fever and he wasn't interested in dragging two young boys around. And once she passed away, I think there were some arguments and stealing and disagreements. So it wasn't just abandonment, but all those factors put together, Antrim left, and those two boys were orphans, and that's where all the trouble started, and Billy headed down that road. But here we are at the grave of Mrs. Catherine Antrim. Now I will point out one thing you will notice is here it says Catherine with a C, which is correct. And then you see there it's with the K. The tombstone here is incorrect from what I understand. But it says mother of Billy the Kid. This is the place where she died. Now, we're not sure if this is the actual grave location here. It might be like the Brushy Bill thing where they put out a monument. So in 2004, from what I read, the attorneys representing Henry McCarty family petitioned to have Antrim's body exhumed for DNA testing. And all of these things were happening. You have two ranchers claim that they were Billy the Kid, and Brushy Bill, and all this stuff. They said neither Billy the Kid's burial plot in Fort Sumner nor that of his mother, who was moved from the cemetery in the center of town to Memory Lane, can be exactly located. So all I'll tell you, and it just sounds confusing, is you read all of it. I've studied Doc Holliday. I've studied Wyatt Earp. I've studied Wild Bill Hickok. We went to the grave. And I always say in these stories, there's maybe 60%, 70% truth, and you're just never going to know for sure on a lot of this history. And people pipe up, oh, you got the story wrong, and oh, this and that. I'm an expert. Nobody's an expert. Nobody knows for sure. We just do the best we can, and you have to make up your own mind. But Billy the Kid, compared to all of the other historical figures, the Western frontier and outlaws, is the worst pile of garbage history that you're ever going to have to try to sift through. Now, I gave you some good history on his mom. It's probably pretty solid. But when you start delving into Billy the Kid and Brushy Bill, the Brushy Bill, I call it the BBBS, Brushy Bill BS, and all the other stuff. Anyway, I'll tell you what. So first, let's go over here, and I brought a rose. So hopefully she's here somewhere, and hopefully this is her grave. May not be. But we'll just do that. Ground's pretty hard. So, Mrs. Catherine Antrim, rest in peace. And I'll tell you what, I'm going from here near Fort Sumner, and I've got to do a story just east of Fort Sumner. And you know what's at Fort Sumner? Yeah, tomorrow morning early, let's stop at Billy the Kid's grave. And let's just see it. All right, we'll do it. Part 2 coming up. So rest in peace to Catherine, and stay with me here. We're gonna transition right over like magic to Fort Sumner right now. Yep, that's right. That is the Super 8, and that's where I stayed last night. I am in Fort Sumner, New Mexico. Yeah, I just got here last night after dark. I think it was 5 or 6 hours from Silver City, New Mexico. Drove through this mountainous region right outside. It's the Gila National Forest mountains there, right outside of, east of Silver City. A zigzag road for many miles, breathtaking views, and then by Truth or Consequences, Route 25 over to, then I stopped at the Trinity test site marker that was eerie and made it here last night. So we're gonna stop and see Billy the Kid's real grave. I had a story about a half hour east of here, and I'm like, with yesterday, let's go see it. I don't really plan on telling much Billy the Kid's story. I've kind of told a bunch of that on the Brushy Bill story, where I was, in my opinion, debunking that whole thing, that garbage. But I think what I'll do is, it's like 8 minutes from here. Fort Sumner, there's not much here. Maybe a couple of hotels. So I'll take you on the drive. And let's head into the sunrise. And we'll head to the cemetery. Yeah, the strip is behind me, and it's not a real long strip, and there's not a whole lot to see. And now we're heading eastbound out of town. Right into the sun. Yeah, I've always wanted to come here and see the grave of Billy the Kid, the cage grave. And I'll tell you what I think we'll do. I just want to see it, and we'll just see the details. We'll do it together. Of course, as I said, I haven't scoped it out. And I think what we will do is, what I want to do is, I do know something interesting about Billy the Kid's grave. And if you guys, let's do this. I will, for a week here, I'm going to, from a week from now till next week, next Sunday, at the same next Sunday night, I'm going to give you guys a week. And anybody that wants to comment and send me a note about anything that's peculiar or interesting that I probably haven't heard of, and most people haven't heard of, about Billy the Kid or his grave. I mean, the story's been told over and over and over, 10 different ways to Sunday. And I have a little factoid. Well, I can't call it a factoid, but it's an interesting remark about the grave of Billy the Kid while we're there. And if, like I say, if you can put in comments something that none of us have heard of, that's probably true. Because I say probably true because that's how the whole story is. Well, the whole story is like half of it's maybe true. It's like Brushy Bill, come on, such garbage. I think that actually Elvis killed Billy the Kid. No, actually Elvis was Billy the Kid after Billy the Kid didn't die, not Brushy Bill. And then Billy the Kid is the one who shot Lee Harvey Oswald because he lived a long time. Anyway, enough on that. We're on the road here. This is an interesting road. Let me get the camera situated. Let's prioritize on driving. All right, so I've set the camera up here, and we're heading down southbound on some road that heads to the cemetery. We've got about 3 more miles. When researching the story years ago, everybody you hear on YouTube, and there's a million YouTubes, and from Wikipedia to this and books, everybody has their own version of Billy the Kid. Maybe that's what makes him the #1 most intriguing character of the Old West. But that said, I will tell you something there at the grave, and you guys tell me something. And if you do, I'm not going to give any hearts to any comments, not because I don't love your comments, but on this particular episode, I'm going to only give a heart to where I see a comment and say, oh man, I didn't know that, and that's really cool. And I will give you not just a heart, I'm going to give you a free t-shirt. So what you will do is I'll say heart 1, heart 2, and you can email me at facesforgottentoday@gmail.com. facesforgottentoday@gmail.com, and we'll connect, and I'll do a bulk order, all the people that win. I'm gonna slow down for this guy. Oh, look at all the dogs playing here on the left. It's a play yard. Here they come. Here they come. Hello, hello. What are you guys up to? I love dogs. What? What is it? What? Tell me. All right, so I'm gonna give you guys a t-shirt. Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am. Free t-shirt. What I'll do is, once I collect all the people that have intrigued me with their comment and get a heart and email me and connect, I will, a few weeks later, it's gonna take a few weeks, maybe, but you gotta tell me your size and your color you want, and I will have a t-shirt sent to you for free for your amazing input and comment. All right, we still have 2 more miles to go here on this lonely road. I would have thought the cemetery would have been a lot closer to the town. It's way out here. It's probably good. There's rumor or stories, I remember reading or hearing there was a big flood and washed the kid's grave away. I think that's been debunked. Of course, this is the spot where I'm going to say I believe that's the real Billy the Kid, but unless somebody digs him up and does DNA, you're never going to know. And in this generation, it's not going to happen. I think they've tried, and they will do it someday. But going back to Catherine's grave back there in Silver City, I don't know if they can get DNA from her, because I don't know if she's actually buried there. What do you guys know? I heard different things of that. All right, we're just over a half mile away, and I see on the GPS here, it says Billy the Kid's grave. The real Billy the Kid's gravesite. Yeah, oh yeah, that looks familiar. I've seen that building before. Now I wonder if Pete Maxwell's, that's another site I'd love to see. Wonder where that is, where he was killed. I'm sure they have that. So it says Billy the Kid's grave and Old Fort Cemetery. We are in. Well, we're not in yet. There is nobody here. So let's just park over here. Looks like a neat museum, huh? All right. What do you say, guys? We go check it out? Chamber of Commerce. Yeah, this is neat. This looks like a, wonder when it opens. There's got to be a cool museum here or something. Let's see what it says here. Hours. Closed Monday, closed Tuesday, 10 a.m., 10 a.m., 10 a.m. Sunday closed. So it's really Wednesday through Saturday. Who's that? Chairman of the Navajo Tribe Council. Let's enter, guys. It says Post Cemetery, Fort Sumner. And yes, we are in. And there it is, the cage grave of Billy the Kid. I bet a lot of people come here, huh? Here's Joe Texas, Red Grant, who died January 10th, 1880. It is said that while drunk one night, Grant had the misfortune of getting on the wrong side of Billy the Kid at Beaver Smith's saloon at Fort Sumner here. After a heated discussion, Grant bet Billy $25 that he would kill a man first. Billy feigned false admiration for Grant's gun and asked to examine it. Oh boy, you know where that's going. While doing so, Billy rotated the cylinder to an empty chamber, anticipating trouble. Billy and Grant eventually got into an argument. And as Billy turned to walk away, he heard Grant tried to shoot him in the back. All he heard was a click, and that gave Billy the opportunity. Billy turned and drew, firing 3 shots, killing Grant instantly. So I guess this is where he is, huh? Well, before we go to the cage, let's take a look. Very few graves here. Gonzalez, Romaldo, and Juanita. So that's more of a recent grave. Wonder how you get in here. This is an interesting, oh, we've got an oval, guys, our favorite. And what a great picture that is. Juanita Martinez Garrett. Beautiful woman, 1860 to 1879. Died very young. Piercing eyes. Beautiful stone. Of course, that's not the original stone. Here's a Maxwell. And there's another, so here's some Maxwells. Oh, this is Pete Maxwell. Well, again, many of you already know this, you Billy the Kid aficionados. April 27, 1848, June 21st, 1898. Pete Maxwell, what a beautiful stone. I wonder if that is the original stone. Some beautiful wrought iron here. It's a beautiful, peaceful morning. Monument. Navajo woman born in Caña del Shelly, Arizona. She was taken as a slave during an Apache raid when she was a child, later adopted. Here. She was here the night Billy the Kid was killed by Pat Garrett. I hated those men, and I'm glad that I've lived long enough to see them all dead and buried. She died in 1927. This marker is in remembrance of her contribution to the history. Now, is this her grave here? It's very interesting history. There's Charles and Siberia. No. Maybe this is her grave here. No. Manny. All right. Well, let's head over to the caged grave. Oh, wait a minute here. Can't pass up Mr. Silva. He was a friend and pallbearer to Billy the Kid. In an interview with Jack Hull in 1937, he said it was the night of July 14th, 1881. The kid had just ridden to town. He was hot and tired, and we drank beer together. He told me he was going to the home of Don Pedro Maxwell for a cut of fresh beef for his supper. In a few minutes there were shots. I ran over to Maxwell's home, and the kid was dead on the floor, face down. We moved the body to the old carpenter shop, laid him down on the bench, placed candles around the corpse, and he was buried in the old graveyard the next day. It would be here. That would be right here, guys. All right, to the cage. Remember, if you have any comments that might intrigue me, free t-shirt. We're going to be doing this for just a week, and then it's going to be inactive. Look at all the people that were chipping away. Let's look at the back of the stone. Right off the bat, we had to put this cage here. Not only the cage, and then they have to get, for sticky fingers, you got to put this grating on, because people have to get their grimy hands in there. All right? Let's take a close-up of that. So there is the stone. And that looks like a pretty old stone, probably not the original. Pals. So Tom O'Folliard died in 1880. That's a whole story. William H. Bonney, alias Billy the Kid, died, and then Charlie Beaudry. Now that picture, I just want to say these, and make a comment about the pictures. So a lot of these pictures, guys, are not the person. Going back to Silver City, Catherine, if you go on Find a Grave and other places, you're going to see pictures of women that kind of look like her, but it's not. It's definitely not her. And you see this all the time. And you know, because in my opinion, you know, you can do facial recognition and you can line up the eyes and all that. And I think, you know, there's some science to that. But the bottom line is, it's the essence of the person, the eyes, the nose. You can see, you know, a person is 15, 20 years old, picture, and then when they're 80, you're like, yeah, that's them. You know immediately it's them. Just, it's their essence, it's their face. How do I describe it? And those pictures aren't Catherine. And then we've got Billy the Kid, and a lot of people are coming forward, oh, this is a picture of Billy the Kid. And we got Doc Holliday, same thing, those are not. I'll say on Doc Holliday, that picture that came out of him before his death in Glenwood Springs, sitting in the chair, skinny and gaunt, that does look like him. That could be him. But getting back to Billy the Kid, all of these pictures now, the tintype, you know, was bought, verified. That's verified because Pat Garrett, while he was alive, saw that tintype and said, that is Billy the Kid. So we know that is Billy the Kid, and there's other reasons. I determined who the photographer was and where. And the other picture that I do believe is Billy the Kid is the croquet picture. The rest of the picture is not Billy the Kid. Come on, guys. You're just trying to make money. But the croquet picture is a cool story, because the croquet picture, if you don't know, there's a guy who went in an antique store, and I think he paid maybe $1 or whatever, and he got this tintype, he got the negative, he got a really good image of these people playing croquet, and in the distance, a little foggy, it's like, hey, that's Billy the Kid, and at first, people are like, yeah, give me a break, everyone's trying. But I believe that's him because of the drooped shoulders mainly, and just even though it's a little blurry, it's that essence of Billy the Kid, the face, the way he stands, you know, he just, that stance, that whole Billy the Kid, it's just him. That's my opinion. May not be him, but all the other pictures, it's a joke. I see Charlie Beaudry here, buried here. He, I believe, was in that picture with the mustache up on the horse. I think, if I'm getting my history right, we're just popping in here. I didn't do any research on Billy the Kid, but I know, anyway, Charlie, let's take a look here. We got Charlie Beaudry, Tom O'Folliard, and there are, yes, debatable pronunciations of Tom's name, but I like that it says pals. That's really cool. So there's a good look at the stone. And here we see where they are laid out. And this is going to get to my part. So, you know, this says Billy the Kid. It says right up there. And then I think that, I don't know what that says, hard to read, but the other two guys are here. Oh, here's another stone. This may have been here. Let's see, erected by the Bandit King. Look at that. That may have been before that stone, I don't know, but it's granite and it has no chip marks, so who knows. But what I am thinking is that you guys have got to come up with some comments that most of us don't know. Because we've all heard the story of Billy the Kid, and we've heard the twisted versions from the experts who all have differing opinions and really don't know themselves, but they want to sell books. But there is one interesting thing that I heard, and that is either on this side or on this side, they're not actually there. That Billy the Kid is like over here somewhere. Maybe that's why they put this sidewalk in. They're not in the cage. They're not at this location. Or it could be on this side. I don't know where I heard that, but I heard that, and I just thought it was really interesting. And if any of you know, please comment and say, oh, you're way off base. That was debunked, blah, 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 or I've never heard of it, you're crazy. That's okay. I accept all comments. Because I'm not an expert on Billy the Kid, I'm looking to a lot of you guys to chime in. So there it is. The grave of Billy the Kid. Charlie Beaudry, unlucky friend of Billy the Kid. Escape was made. Yeah, Stinking Springs. That is where he walked out, and they thought it was Billy the Kid because of the sombrero he was wearing, right? And here's the story of Tom. Sheriff Pat Garrett got him December 19th here in Fort Sumner. And then, of course, I'll show you this, the Billy the Kid, his story, and then they have this thing here, this sign. Billy the Kid's tombstone was stolen in 1951. Location was a mystery for 26 years until 76 when it was recovered in Texas by a man named Joe Bolin. Tombstone was stolen again in 1981, recovered 4 days later, and then Governor Bruce King stepped in. He arranged for the county sheriff, Big Jim, to fly to Los Angeles to retrieve the marker, and the Chamber of Commerce officials, along with Jarvis P. Garrett, officially reset the tombstone in iron shackles at Billy's feet on May 30th, 1981. Oh, so that's this one in shackles. And when we say at Billy's feet, I guess that's what I'm saying. That's not Billy's feet. But anyway, cool history, guys. It was fun to stop out here and see it. We got to say rest in peace to the pals. They were good pals. All right, guys, we are out of here. I'm heading east to do my story that I originally came here to do, but it was a good sidetrack. All right, let's go.